Yawning. I was in math class and while the teacher was doing a problem, I yawned. Not loudly. Not exaggeratedly. I just covered my mouth and did a silent yawn. Teacher saw and literally stopped teaching and stared me down. I turned red and just sat there and she squared her shoulders and said, "Since you aren't going to apologize for disrespecting me, you can get out of my classroom. It's too boring here anyways for you, I suppose." I was confused and asked why and she said, "You're just too smart to be here. So get out." I went to the office and couldn't tell them why I was in trouble. When the teacher called down she said I yawned and looked bored. The principal wasn't very happy with her reason and scolded her before sending me back to class, but still. What the duck? In 6th grade the teacher ripped up my assignment in front of the class and gave me detention because I didn't wait until I was home to do my homework. That's messed up. All through my school years I tried to finish my homework in class. Do they want to waste your time? One time my teacher was explaining a math problem on the board and she made an arithmetic mistake. I raised my hand and pointed out the mistake and she looked at her notes and verified that she had transcribed it correctly. I tried to argue that just because it's written in her notes doesn't mean it's correct and that she should investigate here and now. Unfortunately I was just a kid and couldn't explain that very well. She thought I was being rude and sent me into the hall. My school forbids students from dyeing their hair. One day after a weekly assembly, they decided to do a spot check. No socks? Punished. No school badge on your breast pocket? Punished. See, my hair is black, but when exposed under the sun, it turns dirt brown. They did a spot check under the sun that day and guess who got punished for dyeing their hair? This was 10 years ago. We were allowed to dye hair natural colors. And in 8th grade I dyed the ends of my hair red. I immediately got in trouble for having unnatural hair color while the kid who smoked cigarettes at 12 years old and had highlighter yellow hair didn't get shit. 5th or 6th grade. I told a friend I liked a girl or had a crush on this girl. He wrote her a love letter, signed my name and slid it in her locker. The next morning I got called to the office. My teacher was there, with another teacher holding the note. Asked me why I done this. I didn't do that, I said. They got my notebook to compare the handwriting. Completely different, but they insisted it was identical. I gave up after about 30 minutes and accepted my punishment of 1 day lunch detention. Eat lunch alone. Whatever. 2 days later I found out who did it. Ha ha ha, good times. Getting stabbed by a pen in 1st grade. I got in trouble for that. Completely unwarranted too. He just stabbed me out of nowhere. Raised his hand. And said I punched him. I was bleeding and crying. He was straight-faced. I had never done anything bad in that class. But this kid would capture bugs and burn them to death with a magnifying glass. But I was the bad one. I was around 8 at the time. Sitting in our school assembly, with everyone singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Little me thinking I was hilarious. Sang out, used to laugh and call him names. Like Fish Face. And then laughed at my amazing wit. My teacher instantly gave me daggers. And tells me I have after school detention. So I'm annoyed sitting in detention. Forced to write out the lyrics to the song over and over. Thinking, wow, this woman is passionate about Rudolph. After 45 minutes I mustered up the courage to ask what's so bad about saying fish face. As it turns out she thought I said duck face. Still had to stay in detention for another half hour. Getting suspended for skipping class. Kinda defeats the purpose. So, you like leaving school? A. We'll have you leave so much school you won't know what to do with yourself. Cleaning up too fast in kindergarten. We pretended a gun would go off, so we had to clean up really fast. Apparently we were being silly and I've been scarred for life ever since. I'm glad that teacher is probably dead by now. Another time I guessed the principal's computer password to log in as the man go on the internet. This was in 1998. Each class had Sheety Max on an intranet, so when they found out I got in Sheet for hacking, when the school called my parents they just laughed at them, hung up, told me not to duck around, and we went for pizza. There were these two sisters who bullied me and my best friend for months. We went to the principal many times and nothing was ever done about it. One day they were following us around after school talking shit, and finally I turned around and said something along the lines of them being fat and to leave us alone. I know it's a shitty comeback, especially compared to all the things they were saying, but whatever. My friend went home and minutes later they jumped me from behind in the main lobby and I got a 2-day suspension for instigating the fight. My best friend and I were kicked out of our classroom for smiling at each other. Because smiling at each other is disruptive to the class. Got busted for alcohol in my room when I wasn't drinking. Background: it was a private university operated by a church, so it was a dry campus. My roommate was throwing a party while I was home recovering from being sick. I was taking antibiotics and was therefore not drinking alcohol that evening. The fact that he was also doing coke with a girl in our bathroom during the party wasn't caught by the RAs. The party was noticed by the RAs and we all got written up for having alcohol in our room on campus. So we all had to go to an anti-alcoholic counseling session. Counselor, do you promise not to do that anymore? Me: absolutely. Next time I get written up for alcohol I will make sure that I actually had a drink. I was into serial killers as a teen. It's interesting how the human brain works kind of way. Someone mentioned a rather famous one. Randomly. While we were on break in a class. I said, oh yeah, he's super interesting, went into no details. The teacher says, who is that you're talking about? I said, oh. He was a serial killer. Known for killing young boys. Boom. Trouble. Name written on the board as a troublemaker. Sent to the principal's office. I was also sent to the office by the same teacher because a new student was threatening to shoot me in the head. After she verbally threatened me for a while, she started making shooting motions with her hands when the teacher wasn't looking. Finally I said to her, stop threatening to shoot me. And yep. Said the word shoot, so I got sent to the office. My explanations didn't matter to them. In 5th grade some of my other classmates had this super creative game at recess that had 2 rules. 1. Find the biggest rock. 2. Throw it at whoever the hell you want. I thought if I didn't play I would get hit with a rock, like some kind of idiot. Some kid found a big rock. Hit me in the head with it. And when I told the teacher I needed to see the nurse I was sent to the principal's office because the kid who threw the rock was a good kid who wouldn't do something like that unprovoked. Not myself but a good friend and classmate. He was across the classroom sharpening his pencil when his desk literally collapsed on itself. He was issued 2 detentions and a referral for destruction of property. To this day I've never seen someone's face as confused and defeated. I have a speech impediment that makes it difficult to pronounce the letter R, roticism, and my cadence tone is irregular. It all stems from a car crash I was in as an infant that caused all sorts of problems for me. In my public speaking class my teacher docked points multiple times for my accent and said I should have gone to speech therapy for it. Sorry, my parents couldn't afford something that is not covered by insurance. Sorry you had the displeasure of listening to me speak normally. When I was in kindergarten my teacher sent me to alternative classroom for eating the honeycomb cereal off of a paper beehive we were making as an activity. Duck you. MRS. Ford. Once got in trouble by a teacher I didn't have for having red highlights. It wasn't bold. It was dark reddish brown. And the principal just told me to go back to class. Another time I got in trouble for yawning cause the teacher thought I was bored. I loved that class. No way I was bored. Just tired. I started skipping that class after that. In high school I skipped a class that I didn't have. I told the teacher and she agreed that I wasn't even allowed to take that particular class. 2 days detention. One time in 4th I got sent to detention for a day for not eating trail mix my teacher handed out. I was allergic to like 90% of the things in it. It was also homemade and almost everyone who ate it got food poisoning. Still not worth the detention. Finished my work. Got told off for finishing the paper too fast. Teacher gave me extra work. I finished that too. She told me to prove I understood it. I answered all her questions about it. She yelled at me. My teacher asked me to shut the window behind me. The latch was stiff, so I used a bit more strength and it shut really loudly. I was taken into the hallway and talked to about almost breaking school property. Being a disturbance. etc. Got a warning. Next level would have been a suspension apparently, and went back to class. It was probably more dumb on my part. But I always thought it was a bit funny that the first time I ever got in serious trouble was for destruction of school property. When I was in 7th grade. I hit a growth spurt and obviously had to show off my new height. I did so by gently smacking an exit sign hanging at the bottom of the stairwell. The exit sign fell and I got detention and a disciplinary referral.